You got a lot of guys stepping up for this team, and I think that you see it within their success, right? A massive win against the Atlanta Falcons. And the Atlanta Falcons, we recognize not the best defensive line in the NFL, okay? So keeping them clean against the Atlanta Falcons, maybe it's a job that you should do, but it's a job that they did beautifully. Now, you can take it even beyond the Atlanta Falcons when you look at the Denver Broncos. Over the last 4 weeks, they're number one in the NFL in team pass blocking grade with an 84.9. This past week specifically, 1 sack, 3 pressures. That's it. 8.6% pressure percentage for the whole game. Single digits is nuts. To have that low of a pass rush win percentage against you as a team is crazy. I mean, that is extremely, extremely efficient performances from them in the pass blocking game. When you look at Bo Nix and how he has been playing, a lot of people like to talk about Bo Nix, and obviously I think that Bo Nix should get his flowers. He is playing well, but clean pocket Bo Nix, we knew that was going to be a good football player going in the NFL, and it certainly is right now. He's 25 for 28 over the last month, this past week. 276 yards, 4 passing touchdowns, and 88.9 passing grade. When he is kept clean, he is extremely successful. Since week 5, Nix has the 3rd best passing grade in the NFL when he has been operating behind a clean pocket, which the Broncos have been able to give him pretty regularly. So just your overall thoughts before we sort of dig into a little more of the finer things with this Broncos offensive line, how they have been playing, and your thoughts on them sort of moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most fun groups to watch in the league. The way they just blast people up front, they're not actually as effective running the ball. And even when you watch them, there's things where you're like, technically that's not so great. I do think they do an unbelievable job of marrying the scheme to the actual skills of the linemen. They're pretty predictable in the run game, but they've kind of decided on this play, they pull balls a lot. For instance, it's like on these designs, this is where these guys are best. We don't really care if we're kind of tipping our hat on who's doing what. We just want our guys to be in the best spot possible. So I love that just from kind of marrying what you want to do philosophically to the actual skills of your players. But the main thing is the pass pro. I mean, the 3 interior guys are playing as well as any interior in the NFL. Not one of them has a pressure rate above 3% this season. And I think Wattenberg in the middle is like the sneaky story of the season. I can't think of any player outside of Creed Humphrey who's actually having a better season in pass pros as just a center. And these guys don't let anyone run through cleanly, particularly as they've got healthy and the right tackles back and Wattenberg has returned too. They don't let anyone through cleanly. They play in attack mode all the time. Everyone's always hunting for work. No one's passive. And what I think it's had in terms of the general kind of structure of the offense, as you mentioned with Nix, is it's not just when he's clean, they don't give up any pressures in quick game. They are by far, to me, the best group this season in terms of turn the back play option and keep in the pocket solid so you can climb up. And if you just say going into the year, right, how can you help Bo Nix in year one? Ways we've seen guys like a Bryce Young fail or something like that is too much quick pressure in quick game and you can't make quick decisions. And the turn the back play action stuff gets really fuzzy. You have to get out of it and you're moving out of an easy code from the offense. So them having those two things be at such a premium just makes life easier for Nix. And I think what you've seen is his level of trust and understanding in the offense generally has been really impressive. He is playing so quick now, getting from one thing to the next and being really snappy with when he makes decisions going from 1 to 2 or 2 to 3. But you see an awful lot of him having like real serious resets, which you don't get an awful lot of in the NFL, right? Where you can just kind of stand, scan, completely reset your lower body mechanics and come back to something on the backside. He just has such he's so comfortable now because the interior is never losing. So if he loses, it's at least off one of the edges. He can kind of feel it and climb up a little bit. And with Nix, as you know, Trev, one of the main concerns is, well, he drops back too far. He just wants to shuffle off his spot. He drifts a whole bunch and he kind of moves himself into pressure. Him understanding, and he doesn't take advantage of it as much as I would like, but he's growing with it where I can just stand up and climb because these 3 guys never ever lose. And if no one's ever going to lose and no one's ever coming through there cleanly and there's an unblocked pressure, my odds are pretty damn good that I can just climb up and reset and find someone somewhere down the field.
Yeah, I think that it's a larger conversation when you look at quarterbacks at the college football level. And, I don't know if this is just like a video game Madden thing or this is just like you can get away with it in high school and college now because a lot of the high school and college game sort of like caters to where quarterbacks are. You're simplifying the game. You're kind of letting them sort of do what they want, especially if they're athletic quarterbacks. You see a lot of these guys, when they get at the end of their drops, they're not really eager or it's not first in their mind to step up. It's not like, oh, okay, like I hit the back of my drop. I might hitch a little bit, and now I'm hopping up and I'm moving forward to be able to move forward in the pocket, launch off of that front foot, and get the ball where it needs to go. A lot of these guys will stop their drop, whether they hitch or not. They're sitting back there, and then if they feel any pressure at all, boom, they're bailing out of the back. They're like, all right, I'm getting out of here. I'm going to the sideline. Sometimes that could be great. We've seen in college football, if you could extend plays, the DBs in college, they're just not reliable enough to be able to hold up for 4, 5, 6 seconds in a play. So a lot of times extending plays like that, sure, you can get away with it and you find an open guy, but in the NFL, it doesn't normally work like that. These guys are too good. And all that to say, you've got to learn to be able to step up when you get to the end of your drop. And for some rookie quarterbacks, young quarterbacks, they don't like doing that. So the fact that he has an interior offensive line that he can trust, where Nix is growing in that area to stay in the pocket, to climb the pocket, to be able to continue to scan the field, I think is a really big deal. I also wanted to shout out, I think this is a really good zone blocking team. You mentioned, okay, sort of in the run game, they're a little predictable. They're not as good in the run game, and our grades reflect that. They're not quite as good in the run game as they are in the pass game. But when it comes to that level of chemistry and feel, with pass pro, which is, there's a lot of things, there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of chemistry that you have to have there. I feel like I see that in like inside and outside zone, specifically with this team, where they are firing off the ball. It's immediate little double team, little push, and we're climbing to the second level. Everybody knows their angles. Everybody knows their aiming points. And to me, I also feel like they're playing a very clean brand of football when it comes to zone blocking, especially those outside zone runs. So it's an offensive line that is really good when you get them moving. Again, whether it's, away from where the ball was snapped originally in a zone blocking, an outside zone type of a feel, or again, like pass protection, right? Everybody's moving, everybody's, trying to figure things out in real time, and they've got to have this chemistry with one another. Those two areas, when you get these guys moving, it feels like they're playing really well. So it's an athletic offensive line as well, and I think that they're able to stand up really well in that regard.
Yeah, I think Minot is the one, right? He's kind of the superstar of the group if you had to have one. And he just crushes people on that stretch stuff you're mentioning there. He's got a really good feel for it. And that kind of goes to the point I was saying with what they've done as a staff to the kind of tools of the players is it's not that I say they're predictable to give them a demerit. You got to major in something in the run game. And if you're going to major in outside zone or inside zone or a stretch system, you have to rep that so many times. And it's just such a feel type play and a chemistry based play. You kind of have to, that's the offense, right? That's what you're running that so you can get the stretch, you can get to the boots, you can take play action shots. So it's not to say, they don't have as many fancy designs as Mike McDaniel. What I love about kind of the nuances of what they're doing within that stuff is understanding that, okay, Ben Powers is really good as a backside guy. And if we're running with Ben, you're going to have to ride these double teams longer because he just cannot hold up the same way Quinn can when he's the front side guy. So it's kind of the mini mechanics and the nuances of who they're helping on what certain designs are designed to make sure that the best player at that stuff is the point of attack player. The same way you see with Ben Johnson, the Lions, where they run certain things knowing it doesn't even matter if it's 3rd and 3 and we're going behind Sewell. There are certain things where based on formation and alignment, if we can get the look we want, no one's stopping that guy one-on-one anyway. So even if there's guys who aren't as successful, I think just kind of one-on-one individually in the run game all the time, they've done an unbelievable job of making sure those guys are at least in the best position they could possibly be in. And if there's a guy who needs more help of building things and building in certain duo mechanics where we're going to find a way to get that guy help, whether it's bringing in extra tight ends, you have an extra hat in the box, whatever it is. Sean Payton, I think, is over the last month, I would say he has been as good as anyone, I think, of kind of synthesizing his offense to what is going to actually work. That, okay, I'm going to throw all the things we tried in the first 3 weeks that I love stylistically. I don't think our players have it for that stuff, right? And that to me is just great coaching of let me pull out the stuff I know I like, but if it doesn't work, what is the point? Let's get to the things we do well, and let's try and find mini tweaks so we can kind of elevate it ever so slightly week over week, but also so that my players are all playing at their absolute apex because they're getting certain help in certain areas that I think they need.
Last talking point. How much faith do you have in the Denver Broncos right now? They're sitting here at 6-5. They're 3rd in the division. We talked right before we recorded, and man, it feels like the AFC playoffs is not locked in because there's a lot of who could be hosting, where the seeds could be with these teams. But it feels like the Broncos sitting here at 6-5, especially with you look at their point differential. They're right up there with a bunch of the division winners. And when you look at the point differential with the teams that are currently projected, if the playoffs were to be this weekend for the AFC, it's very clearly the highest point differential teams in the NFL. The Denver Broncos are one of them. So it's been a really nice, I feel like, 8-week stretch for the Broncos. Let's focus on offensive side of things. the offensive line, like, do you still have faith in the offensive line and in Nick's to still be the offense that they need to be to make I don't want to say like surprise playoff run, but surprise playoff appearance? Because I don't think anybody expected the Denver Broncos to be in the playoffs this year. And if they are, I feel like it's a job well done and maybe a step forward than what we thought they were at as a franchise. So how much faith do you have in the Broncos here moving forward?
I mean, for sure. Early this season, I thought this thing could really go downhill. I'm not sure if Sean Payton has that kind of personality to kind of dig the guys out of a hole. He seems like someone who would just stamp on his own players, and the thing could really roll off the rails really early on. He'd be like, go get me 40 new players. I can't work with these ones. That's where I thought it was heading. So the job they've already done is really impressive. There's nothing I think they do that feels unsustainable, if that makes sense.
Right.
Defensively would be the thing, right, where you're like, can you blitz at that level? Where are the superstars? Like, that must come back down to earth at some point. And they've had some weeks where they've had difficulty, but for the most part, it stayed pretty true, right? And I think that will, if they aren't a team who can, let's say, go to Buffalo and hold the Bills under 24 points, they're so chaotic, they're so creative. You could see them getting 2 turnovers in a playoff game, and it's like, oh, we're in trouble right now offensively, right? I could see them being a major upset alert team where they can control the ball slightly with the run game, they can hit some deep shots, and they can force turnovers. And all of a sudden, the Bills looking like, oh, I did not expect this to go this way. We were trying to get ready for Kansas City next week. This is not how it's supposed to go. I really feel like they have a whiff of that kind of team about them where they can get through and get into the playoffs, and then we'll have a week of conversation like, hey, you know who could be the upset team this week? No, this Broncos team got a pretty nice profile for an upset. So they are way beyond what I thought they would be. I thought defensively they were starting to start the season, and if offensively they just couldn't get to that level, at some point defense tapers off, right? It's just too many possessions, you're on the field too much, you run out of ideas, and the execution drops slightly. For the offense now to raise its game where it feels sustainable to me, did I think Knicks could be this kind of like deep in-breaking anticipation thrower this early on? I did not see that coming in the slightest. I thought it would be gamified, bubble screen, quick game, play action, and we can kind of figure it out, and let's get through year one, and we'll start adding stuff in year two. I'm really impressed with his own development and what they've done to be able to help him out. So it feels sustainable, I think.
Broncos ahead of schedule, it feels like, in a lot of ways. It starts with the quarterback, but it's also, like you mentioned, the defense side of the football, how the offensive lines really come together. And they've been a fun team to watch, so I'm excited to continue to watch them throughout the season. Thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure you like and subscribe the video. And if you don't have a PFF Plus subscription, you can get one to see all the premium stats that we talked about here on the show, plus the expert betting and fantasy advice over at subscribe.pff.com. The description is also right below, so if you are not a PFF Plus subscriber, you can come one today.